In 2018, Mr. William C. Foreman went to a railway show. He was not very interested in locomotives, but his friends convinced him to go there. He was fascinated by all the historic engines on the railway, and after the railway show, he was greatly interested in all these historic locomotives. When the railway show had ended, he spoke with the manager of the railway. He was greatly impressed by what he had to say. He was very wealthy and decided to start up a railway of his own. He enjoyed spending most of his time by the coast, so he decided to order the railway to be built there, and over the next few years the railway was built. He also bought a lot of very historic locomotives. I say a lot. He only bought 3, but these were very famous locomotives, and in his spare time he would work on them, making them brand new again. He repaired 3 locomotives, the most famous one of these locomotives being the Rocket. However, the other 2 were around in Rocket's time. In fact, they competed against him in the Rainhill trials, these being Novelty and Sans-Pareil. These 3 engines were the first ones fully owned by William. However, he ordered for 2 replica engines to be made. These 2 replica engines were the Cyclopede, along with Perseverance. The Cyclopede was an odd choice by William. It was an odd choice by William to be having a replica made of, due to him only accepting steam locomotives. However, he said the Cyclopede was the exception to his railway. The Cyclopede would often be stationed at the station, usually within a shed, so he wouldn't get in the way of different trains. However, when there was a day when trains weren't on the move as much, he would be stationed on to the main line. And this allows people were fascinated by not only the Cyclopede being the exception to the steam power railway, but also by the history of this strange monstrosity. The other 4 engines, however, would do the other trains and would pull out their jobs. Although Perseverance was the least popular out of all these working locomotives, mainly due to being the least known that was doing the work. However, the driver and fireman did not mind this. As long as they got to do their work, they were happy. Although they were a little bit disappointed that they didn't get as much money due to not having as much driving force towards them. However, this still didn't bother them, as they were happy to drive a historic replica. Novelty, though, was the engine that impressed the passengers the most. Despite being a very old engine, she impressed the passengers with her speed capabilities. She was of course designed for speed, and even though she could only achieve 20 miles an hour, which is not that impressive compared to the amount of speed that other locomotives can go on nowadays, she did impress the passengers quite a lot. That a small locomotive like Novelty, with a very odd design, which was used for fire engines back in the day, was capable of travelling at 20 miles an hour. This really impressed the passengers, and like back with the Rainhill trials, she became the favourite amongst passengers. Sans-Pareil was often the goods engine on the line. Despite this being a heritage railway, Sans-Pareil did still carry out goods duties. This was usually coal or water. However, he did sometimes pull different loads. However, this was not frequent. He was picked as a goods engine due to being the strongest in the Rainhill trials. He was the heaviest engine there, and was the engine that had to pull 3 times his own weight. And this, well, every engine on the Rainhill trials had to pull 3 times their own weight. However, Sun Parade pulls the heaviest load, due to being the heaviest engine on the line, which meant he got to do this work, which also meant he was the most, well, pretty self-explanatory. So, this was Sun Parade's job. He pulled the goods work. Rocket, however, was usually sat in the shed alongside the Cyclopede, and when he was not doing this, he was usually pulling a passenger train. This was mainly because people wanted to see Rocket the most, and they did not want to have to pay a ticket, which William C. Foreman understood, so allowed him to be in the shed more often. However, when Rocket did pull passenger trains, it was a sight to behold, as many people would come rushing out to the railway just to see Rocket pulling a train. And people would sometimes just buy tickets just to ride on the Rocket, not even to go somewhere. This was all just because Rocket was the most famous engine out of the Rainhill trials. However, this did bother William a little bit, as this did kind of mean that passengers wanted to see Rocket out on the line and see him in action. But he knew this would have to happen more, with the new engine that would be arriving soon. One day, the engine has arrived, and William had gathered everyone over to the last station on the line. The drivers and firemen all came out to their engines to greet William. "Hello, sir," William said. "I have ordered a new engine. I know we haven't had an engine since the opening of this line all the way back in 2020, and I get that we haven't been getting a lot, but with the success of these historic engines, I've decided to buy another historic engine." The drivers and firemen were a little bit confused, yet also worried. The line had been known as the Rainhill 2.0 line, due to the engines only consisting of Rainhill trial engines, and they knew if he bought another historic engine, this would mean that the title of the line would have been taken away, or at least taken away, and would not have the same meaning as it originally had. "So, welcome our new engine," said William. A big green express engine rushed into the final station on the line. It came to a halt in front of Novelty. The engine was City of Churro. William had bought this engine, and this is the reason he knew he would need to get Rocket back on the line. "This is City of Churro," William introduced the driver and firemen to City, "and his driver and fireman will be waiting you now. I shall leave you to it," said William, and he walked off back to his car. The drivers and firemen, once they saw William leave in his car, all started to complain about him buying City of Churro. They thought that this line was a heritage line, and while they knew he had plans to start up an express line, they still weren't impressed by it. When City of Churro's driver and fireman got out, they were a little bit confused by the fighting. "What's going on here?" asked City of Churro's driver. "Do excuse our fighting," said the driver of Rocket. This line has for a long time only been known as the Steam Power Railway, also its second name is the Rainhill 2.0 Railway, and we are quite skeptical about a heritage line being bought onto the line, and I mean express line being brought onto this heritage railway, and we're not really a fan of this express line, especially when we could have one of our other engines do it. Oh, that's fine. I can understand what you feel. I was on the Heritage Railway before. I did not like it when they started bringing in engines that were quite famous, but I warmed up to it. Anyway, I think we better get rid of all the coaches for Truro. See if Truro's driver asked. They're at the first station on the line. Replied Novelty's fireman. Right, thank you, said City of Truro's driver. He and his fireman entered Truro's cab and steamed back down the line over to the first station. I think I'm going to file a complaint to Mr. Foreman, said Wozni, Rocket's driver. I quite agree, replied Novelty's driver. Cal, have you been messing with Rocket's whistle again? I've told you many times before, I'm the one who pulls the whistle. Look, I have never touched the whistle. It's always you who pulls it. I have no idea why the engines whistle on their own. And I've wondered why the whistling was bad. City of Truro will be even worse, said Wozni. Anyway, I think it will be best to leave our complaints until the end of the day when we get paid, said Wozni. Yes, said Novelty's driver. The crews returned to their engines and set off to do their work. That night, when Mr. Foreman came to pay the drivers and firemen, Wozni filed out a complaint. Mr. Foreman, he asked. Yes, Wozni, replied William. Well, we haven't been the happiest on the arrival of the City of Truro. I know that you are wanting to improve the railway's profit as it has been declining since the start of the year, but I think there are better ways to increasing it than buying a new engine. And the Express doesn't really work out that well when we can do the exact same run with passenger trains with Rocket, Saint-Provey and Novelty and Perseverance. Well, not Saint-Provey, as it's a good centre, but you know what I mean. I understand your complaints, but City of Truro has been bought now, and I can't send him back, so unfortunately he's going to have to stay. However, I will take your complaints into my mind and think about them. However, I have been thinking of opening an express line for a long time now, and Saint-Provey has been helping with the building for it, which is why we've also been building a dockside, as the express line will run over to the dockside and then carry on back to the last station on the line. Then you'll carry on up to the dockside and back to the first station on the line. But sir, we can do the exact same thing with our normal engines. Yes, I know you can. However, this is not. They are far too old to do work that goes on for that distance. I get they were able to go on for miles during their times on the Lancashire, on the Manchester and on the Manchester and Lancashire and Manchester, or Liverpool and Manchester Railway. That's what it was. However, this is a very different situation, especially because the distance is a far distance, and City of Truro will just be able to handle that distance in a much faster time. Not that I haven't got anything against these historic engines, as I am quite proud of what they were able to accomplish for the world, but they just won't be able to do the job that City of Truro can do. Alright, said Wozni. So, for now, City of Truro will be staying on the railway. However, I will be taking in your complaints and seeing what I can do about it," said Mr. Foreman. "Good night." And he walked over to his car. "Good night, Mr. Foreman," said Wozni, and the crews went over to their cars to go home for the night. The crews came early in the morning to start up the engine's fires. The fires produced a nice warm glow, and in an hour the engines were ready to go. The engines who first left the shed were Novelty and City of Truro. They had to get their passenger trains prepared, as their trains were the ones that would start off at the earliest in the morning. Many people came to see the arrival of City of Truro on the line. Many people were so excited to see another historic engine being introduced onto the line. However, the drivers and firemen of the Rain Hill engines just glanced at City of Truro with a cold stare. The driver of Rocket decided to speak to the crews of the other Rain Hill engines. Once he finished talking to them, he went back to Rocket. They got the message, and the driver of Novelty pulled Novelty up in front of City of Truro. He got out Novelty and said, "We have 3 rides." Some people rushed over to Novelty's coaches and quickly entered. However, most of them did not. But this was enough for the Rain Hill crews. Novelty set off with an overpacked train. However, this did not bother the driver and fireman of Novelty, as they were at least happy that Novelty now had some more passengers, and that Rocket's driver's plan was working. However, it wasn't long until City of Truro left the station. However, the crews had not realised that William C. Foreman was in City of Truro's coaches and had overheard the offer. He planned to talk to the crews at the end of the day. However, the rest of City of Truro's first ride was an immediate success. William was very impressed by the ride that Truro was able to give. It was a ride like no other. Not even the Rain Hill engines was able to travel as fast as Truro, which was a given, but he was able to take the curves in a different way at a higher speed than the Rain Hill engines, which, while William wasn't as big as a fan of, he did quite enjoy the way Truro took turns the way he did, and was impressed by how well he was able to take these tighter turns. It wasn't long before he was starting to approach the dock line. But once he reached the docks, the station was in sight. Truro sped across the tightly designed switch and was able to cross it with success. He arrived at the platform and the coaches smoothly came to a stop. William exited the coaches and all the passengers clapped. He went over to the cab and congratulated City of Truro's driver and fireman. "That was very well done. You seem to have a lot of experience driving City of Truro," said William. "Well, we've has a lot of training when it comes to driving locomotives. We always wanted to drive City of Truro, so we often trained to driving said Truro's fireman. Oh, how long have you two been friends then? Asked William. Well, we've been best friends for around since we were 10, so said the fireman. Alright, well, let's see how you do getting over to the final station then, said William. He entered back into the coaches, and everyone that was carrying on with the rest of the journey, or was getting onto the journey, entered Truro's coaches. And Truro steams out of the station and took the loop and went back down the line over to the final station on the new express line. By 8 in the morning, City of Truro left the line that led to the dockside and was now back onto the line that led to the final station. Rocket, who was awaiting for passengers at the final station where his coaches were, was waiting for City of Truro to arrive. His driver and fireman, Wozni and Cal, had gotten a phone call from Novelty's driver saying that City of Truro has only had a few of his passengers go to his train. So Rodney and Cal were waiting for City of Truro to arrive. What neither three of them knew, though, was that William was on the train. City of Truro put his brakes on as he came to a stop at the station platform. Passengers were amazed to see the rocket. It wasn't even a replica, it was a real rocket, and it had been restored. However, what was about to happen was not to give a good impression on Wozni and Cal to William. They would turn to the coaches and shout, "We have a free ride!" This time, almost all the passengers rushed into the coaches of Rocket, just so they could have a ride with him. They knew that this would have been their only chance to ride with the Rocket, possibly, so they decided to take it. Just as Rodney and Cal were about to turn on steam on Rocket and have him leave the station, William appeared from behind the coaches. They would see this and would immediately turn on steam. Rocket wheeshed out the station and puffed down the line back to the first station. "After them!" shouted William. He quickly entered the brake coach of City of Truro. "Yes, sir," said Truro's driver, and he backed Truro down the line, even if it was a risk. Rocket's fireman saw this and called Novelty's driver. He told him to go onto platform 2 on the station nearest to the last station on the line. He agreed, and that's what he did. Rocket was achieving 30 miles an hour, which he had not been doing for a very, very, very long time, not since the 1800s. However, his driver and fireman knew that this speed would not be enough to get away from Truro. Truro thundered down the line at a pace that was even quicker than Rocket. It was far quicker, and Rocket was struggling to keep ahead. Truro soon caught up with Rocket. However, this did not last long, as Rocket hurried by the station that Novelty was at, and hurried down the line. William saw Novelty up ahead. He pulled the brakes in the brake coach. The brakes halted the wheels on all the coaches and Truro. Truro screeched for a little bit before slowing down and almost hitting Novelty. It was very close to hitting Novelty, however, it didn't reach her. "I'll be having a word with you," said William. Truro puffed back up the line to the set of switches for him to turn onto. William followed to the set of points, and he switched them for Truro. He ordered Truro to start moving, and that's what he did. And Williams got back into the brake coach. By the time though they had switched tracks, due to the 8 locomotives starting up slow and then gathering speed over time, this allowed Rocket to near the first station on the line, and by the point he reached the station, City of Truro was only reaching the curve on the line. Rocket screeched to a halt. He had been given a good workout. However, his driver and fireman were in big trouble. Not only did Rocket need to refuel on water, and City of Truro's speed had held up, as it wasn't long before he reached the first station on the line. Even despite needing to gather speed, Rocket was no match for the greater speed of City of Truro. He came to a halt beside Rocket, and William stormed out the coaches in fury. He simply told Rodney and Cal that he'd speak to them later at the evening, and he phone calls to the rest of the Rainhill crew and told them the exact same thing. That evening, when he went out to pay all the crew, he only gave a quarter of the money he usually gave to the Rainhill crew, or gave double the money to the City of Truro's crew. "You're supposed to give us 3 more quarters, sir," said Rodney. "So you think I didn't forget about that thing you pulled off earlier?" said William. "Now, I understand that you weren't a fan of City of Truro arriving, but you lost us out on a lot of profits that was very valuable to this railway's success. So, until you can show yourselves that you can carry on working on this railway without needing to interrupt different trains, unless absolutely necessary, you're only going to be given a quarter of the money that you're usually given. And City of Truro's crew, for the time being, will be given the rest of the money that I would have given out to you," said Rodney. He went over to his car and set off back home for the night. "Well, so much for that idea," said Rodney. "And it was a pretty stupid idea in the first place," said Sonpare's driver, Richard. "Well, I suppose you're right," said Cal. "Either way, if your railway is going to keep alive, you're going to need City of Truro," said City of Truro's driver. "So I think we better all get home and catch up on some rest so we can carry on this railway's survival tomorrow," he said. Everyone went to their cars as Rodney looked annoyed. However, he knew it was true, and so he walked over to his car and he went back home. Rodney is still not a big fan of the City of Truro. However, he is alright with him being on the railway. While he was never the biggest fan of the express runs, he saw that it was to keep the railway alive, and ended up agreeing that it had to be done if the railway was going to stay alive and succeed. And as for the rest of the crews, well, they pretty much agreed with Richard, with it being a pretty stupid idea in the first place. And so the railway carries on until the next big event.